Hey, how's it going? Um, I've been facing a couple different situations in life, and they've uh, they've been kind of dramatic. I don't know if I have, but they sound a lot worse sometimes than they are, and sometimes they are worse than I make them sound. So, um, just to allay people's concerns. I'm gonna try to talk about uh, some of the stuff that's been going on health-wise here. So, oopsies. Now we're gonna, okay. Um, I'm gonna try to talk about the physiological stuff first, and then I'll talk about the spiritual stuff after. The only reason that I'm doing that just has to do with the fact that I know that there's some people who care about one instead of the other, so they could just stop the vid. But where their interest ceases. So because actually I don't see them as not being completely intertwined, but just for the sake of continuity and clarity, I'll extract them one from the other, tease them out, so people can hear what they are wanting to listen for. So last week, Monday, I did have a reparative surgery to take care of the surgery that I had previous month. Okay. So Thursday, 3 days later, I rushed to the I rushed to the ER because of a complication that happened from that. And because I walk around with an EpiPen because I can go into anaphylactic shock. There is a possibility of death if I'm getting a certain kind of allergic reaction, particularly to bees. And there wasn't a confirmation that that couldn't have happened. So that's always in the back of my mind when I'm making sure I'm getting myself to the ER on time, um, because it does have deadly consequences. So, um, I made sure the time frame worked okay because we do live very close to where I went. My husband wasn't able to come with me on that hospital visit. Um, he was busy taking one of our sons to an appointment, and there was no one else that I had to go with me. So I ended up calling my priest, partly because he's also 5 minutes away from that emergency room, but also for the support, obviously. And just to finish up the physical portion of it, yay, it all turned out fine. Okay, so as far as they were able to figure out what was going on, and at one point they did actually, they're trying to make sure that they don't have to repair what they thought it could have possibly been. They just wanted to eliminate the most simple answers first. Uh, and by doing that, it was able to be easily resolved. Okay. Rather than, obviously I didn't have to go back into surgery again. It wasn't that serious. It was very simple once it was detected, and then it was no problem at all. The in between of that is, where you're kind of hanging in the balance. So after that, everything as far as different appointments that I've had, and assessments as to what's going on with my health have all been positive. Even so much so as I was able to drive again. So I did that tonight, and yeah, the progress of healing is going really well. So if that's all you came in to tune in for, thanks for your concern, and appreciate you watching the vid. So take care, and if you uh, clicked on to hear about what happened when a priest comes to your ER, I don't promise that every priest would come to your ER, or that this would be your experience, but this is part of what happens to me. So I did, just right after I got into the waiting room, excuse me, I texted my priest, which is strangest sounding thing to me. Who can text their priest? But you can text my priest, both my priests actually. And one of my priests wasn't able to attend, so I simply asked him if he would mind to find out if the other priest was available, and he was. So he said he'd be there in 45 minutes to an hour, which in an emergency room situation, when you are in that waiting room forever and ever and ever, yeah, that's like no big deal. It's a drop in the bucket, right? Because you can be in ERs for 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 hours. So he was on his way, and I just sat about just waiting. And the main thing I did was just not really focus on anything. Try not to think about, what was going on, so that I didn't think negative thoughts of what if, worst case scenario, playing that out in my head. So, excuse me. And I think that was kind of different than times previously. It's very easy to run that hamster wheel in your brain of the what if game and various other worst case scenarios just play out in your head. If you're a person that has a good imagination, you can kind of drive yourself a little mad with that. And Green Soul Sufi had asked, something about that, like how did that, how did you find your way through that? And it's interesting because something that Sister Vasa had said that I had really balked against and really had not understood the first time she had said it. And I'll try to find the quote because it is a scriptural quote, really came into play. And it was so valuable because, and I'm not going to quote it correctly, but what it had to do with is understanding that, the presence of the Almighty being there still with you, even in the darkness. That there's no place where that love won't reach you, and that's the co-suffering love thing, right? So somehow knowing that I wasn't going there alone, which it's a kind of a scary thing when you're going through something that you don't know that you don't know what's could be happening and what the results could be. I think I would have felt more ill at ease, more nervous if I hadn't recalled that concept. So yeah, so there you go. Sometimes the concepts that I fight the most are the ones that become my favorite. It's kind of like a reverse thing where if you go through bad times with someone, you feel bonded. So that happens with me sometimes with certain ideas or something. So maybe it's the ones that I resist the most are the ones that I need the most. I don't know, whatever it is, but that's how that one worked out. So, sitting in the emergency room, blah dee da dee da, and then got to go in to the room where, excuse me, pardon me, I was able to sit down and talk with my nurse and then meet some of the other ER team. So my nurse was wonderful, and he was just so much fun. But only because I was joking with him, you know. I mean, he was he's very serious and very good about his work, and he was very focused, and he was just fun to chat with. I don't know. It's a nice thing when you can just kind of relax with a person who's working in such stressful conditions, because they need a break too, no matter how much they're focused and on task. Um, they seem to really appreciate that, and it's a nice way to kind of like, you're both in your own little respite of, you know, let's chill here and let the world be crazy out there. So we just chatted about all manner of things, and he was just really fun to talk with. And he drew my blood, and I'm a person that's hard to draw blood from. In fact, usually I have to be stuck several times, and I usually end up becoming bruised. But I didn't from him. Anyhow, so I I showed him the drawing site that they had, you know, given me the port on my hand, because it actually looked like a peacock's feather eye, which I have a video about that's privatized, but if you ask me about it, I will send it to you, because that's just quite an odd phenomenon. And yeah, it's just, if you know about orthodoxy, that's significant too. So I just realized I just forgot to call somebody. 4 o'clock in the morning, and I just realized I was supposed to call somebody at 10. Sorry. So that being as it was, then my nurse came in, and she was figuring out what was going on. And right about the time when she was ready to, after she'd consulted with all these people, then she's just about getting ready to start to take care of what's going on. And just then, that was when my priest showed up. So there I am, and he's being very respectful, not to just come on in, because, you know, it's a sterile field, but also for my modesty, of course. And he really made sure that it was okay, you know, because he would have done something else to help be more comfortable if that had been necessary. But there was a way that it you know, he wasn't having to bother to see anything, so it was fine that I didn't mind him being in there. So while the medical team was addressing all of that stuff at the you know, from my waist portion, he's up at my head, and he's saying prayers and prayers and prayers and prayers. So beautiful. And it's the kind of thing where when he starts to say them, you know, you just say them too, and you can't help yourself. And I couldn't exactly, you know, make the full sign of the cross with my hand, but I remember just doing it really small sometimes when it was that point. And the translations that he speaks and the ones that I speak are different, because I learned them from Antiochian and he's Greek. So there's just these little differences of words that I pause and trip over, and I always know when they're coming because I go to both churches. And sometimes, yeah, it's just funny because they mean the same things. So anyways, just focus of translation and habit, I guess. And then he had oil that he anointed me with, and he just kept saying so many different kinds of prayers, and I wish I knew. I mean, I knew what some of them were, obviously, but I guess I wonder if I have in the back of one of my prayer books, like the prayers that a priest will say in attendance of someone who's ill. And if I don't put a link, I would really recommend you go and look them up, because they're very comforting and very beautiful, the way that they approach health and healing, and um, it, it's a really balanced thing, and none of it has to do with, you know, guilt, like guilting, like illness is a punishment or anything like that, which I remember hearing things like that, and there's nothing like that. It's always it's always very confirming and uplifting, but not in a Pollyanna way. So it just so happened, oh, and there was a portion where, you know, he places the stole over my head, and it was interesting because I had had my hand over my eyes before he had come in, just because I didn't want to look at the lights. And so when he did that, I didn't have to. And if you want to think of that in a spiritual way, um, it is very poetic, but it was such a great comfort to have that, like, of protection. I don't know if you want to say that. So I was so comforted by just him being there. I was instantly, you know, put into a state of just the opposite of stressed. um, and just really glad to see him. I mean, so he was very sensitive to the needs of what the staff were trying to accomplish, and he made himself very easily slide in and out of where he needed to be just seamlessly, that they never had to ask him at all, and yet he still was always really affording them that courtesy and respect, and just being in that kind of collaboration, especially with people who've never met one another before. You know, if I could explain it, sort of like it's the opposite of when, like, parents fight in front of their children. It's just that you are being taken care of, you know. So they really kept complimenting him on just his approach to the medical situation, and they expressed in many ways how comfortable they were around him and how valuable they felt that he was, not only to me as a patient, but to them too. They appreciated, which I guess that's a plus of being in a Catholic hospital, right? That the people who work there would have a sensitivity to respect that expression of faith in time of need. So yeah, well, when they were both done nearly at the same time, and I felt no pain the whole time, and it just felt like everything was in sync with itself, as far as, because it's all one thing. There's no, you know, mind and soul and body. It's not separated. We're all, yeah. So he finally left, and he had mentioned something about Eucharist, and I don't remember. I have to talk to him about it. But I had known that Iveron was coming on Sunday, and I talked with him about it. So then after he left, the nurse just had such wonderful things to say. She just kept mentioning all different manner of which he had, you know, been so helpful, and that she really noticed how you know, I reacted, as far as I was calm and she could tell. So that was what happened, which I don't know if I'm really describing it, because I'm just telling you who was there, because obviously there were more people there and there was much more going on. So that makes sense. I hope that's clear. Especially watching 20 minutes of me now, so I appreciate it very much. So then when I left, and I knew I really wanted to make sure that I went to attend the veneration of Iveron, which I did a video on my Cat Elizabeth, so I hope to try to link that. If I don't, please send me a message. And I remember the first time he saw me when I stood up, and to receive blessing. He said, "I'm shocked that you're here," you know, and I said, "Well, yeah, I had to be." I don't think I even said it out loud. I think I just smiled, and I think he knew. I don't know, just by my expression. And I can't take out the element. I can't and I can't underestimate um, a wonder-working icon and the gifts and graces of God that are constantly emanating from the very good medical care that I got. Gratefully, because these all do and should work together. Really, there's no reason why not. And since then, I've had very, very positive improvements that have been noted, and that the healing is happening. They're even able to measure it a lot faster. Like from Monday to Wednesday, the same attendant dressed my wound, and he could measure it. And he said that it actually within 2 days had repaired 25% from what he had first seen. And there was a cavernous tunnel that was like about the size of an eraser, like a little bit, like the end of a pencil, with not one of these though. It was at least that big around, and it probably went at least that much, that far. So I guess that's what, like 3 or 4 centimeters back, or like an inch and a half, or a little inch and a quarter maybe. And it was already completely filled in. So shout out to Yusuf for saying and reminding me that when you go to pray for others, that you receive your healing. And that when I went to Iveron, yeah, I did it for selfish reasons, because I just love to be there, but that it was only in my mind that how much I really wanted to be able to pray for everybody else who I know. And I didn't even know that, when he told me that, I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. So I'm incredibly grateful for everybody who asks me to pray for them, because I love being given that opportunity. So please don't be shy, because I love the chance to get to do that. So it means a lot to me that you would extend me that that trust, and yeah, give me something to do with my day. Okay, so I hope that gives people some encouragement, and I really appreciate you taking the time out to watch me chat for a bit. And anybody has any questions, I hope I can answer, or find somebody else who knows who could better help you out. And thanks to Gambler and Douglas for yeah, being who they are. So thanks to everybody else who who you are too. My mom, my family. Okay, yeah. And I hope everybody's doing really well, and wish you all bright blessings of peace, and take care.